kind of stuff. Thanks. All right, the website is up. As far as I know, it looks like they've got Google and YouTube. So sorry, ladies, I know many of you are Facebooking me, but hey, when's the website coming up? All right. Some of you men, thank you. I'm flattered, but I'm not that flattered. But thank you anyways. All right. So if you want to catch the radio show in the privacy of your home, if you don't have the radio dial up, two ways of you can do it. Again, just go to eddeanradio.com, eddeanradio.com to find out more about Ed Dean and the radio show. Also, the email address, eddeanradio@gmail.com, eddeanradio@gmail.com. Also at iHeartRadio. Just go to iHeart.com and just type in the call letters WAXE. Are we upset, Rigo? All right. No, I know you do. I just want to make sure. Coming up in the next hour, it's all aboard Florida, 750 plan, a bunch of other politics. Bob Solari, Indian River County Commissioner, is going to. There will be no softballs thrown at Bob. We are not professional wrestling here. Professional wrestling is not fake, by the way, folks. People go, what is this? What do you mean when you say that your show's not like professional wrestling? I do not pull professional wrestling tactics on my radio show. Yeah, you got to hit the top one. Was it on, Jody? There we go. Just click to the top one when you go to the website, eddeanradio.com. Click the top one, hit the play, and you'll see me live on the air. Thank you so much. What I'm saying about professional wrestling tactics, professional wrestling is not fake. It's pre-arranged. You follow me? There's a difference between fake and pre-arranged. The guy knows he's going to get hit. He's just ready for it. So I don't always prearrange all my questions when my guests come on my radio show. I'm not being disrespectful of Bob or anybody else. They're all treated the same. I am fair and equal. I am fair and balanced. Mentally unbalanced, that's a different story. But I am fair and balanced. So I don't pull professional flipping radio tactics, professional wrestling tactics on my radio show. It is not prearranged. I tell them the issues we're going to talk about. Here's are the areas. Be ready. There we go. Unlike the liberal media guys that, always prearrange everything. All right. So let me interject because I'm going to make this quick. I'm going to make this a little bit sexy. Some of you, when you hear this, you're not going to turn the radio dial. All right. I do not believe in certain sectors in politics or government there is a need to warrant God's name. I'm not talking federal. I'm not even talking so much in the state. I'm talking to a lot of local issues. Where in the world is God interjected on all aboard Florida? Where in the world is God needed to be injected in a land use regulation? Where in the world does God's name need to be injected into a water usage? It does not. I do not wear, never have, nor will I, WWJD. What would Jesus do? Hey, forget that. What WWED? What would Ed do? And I'm sick of my liberal friends, by the way. Well, Jesus was a man of compassion, and Jesus talked about how we should give charity. Yeah, Jesus spoke to his flock and talked about charity through giving, not through redistribution of wealth through the government. You heard it. That's right, through the government. And that's what I'm getting at. Sorry, I had a cup of coffee in my mouth. I apologize. Jesus did not talk about giving to people out there through a government mandate or redistribution of wealth through the government. He said, do it as a charity item. Unfortunately, many of the liberal left believe that the government is a charity item. And they are not. But some of my conservative friends, there's a land. I need to reject God's name. Let me tell you where I'm going with this story. One of my old friends, Jerry Lostater, he used to be chair of the Christian Coalition when they were popular back in the 1990s. Runs some of these, I think John Sternberger runs the Florida Family Policy Analyst, whatever it is. Now, if you want to send out a questionnaire to voters, and by the way, some of you, you will go to churches here in the next week or so, and on the back of your pews, as you should walk out, you pick up one of these questionnaires. Where do people stand on religious issues? with all due respect, some issues do not apply to school board. Some issues do not apply to county commission. Now follow me before some of you start throwing something at your radios here. I've had this debate with my friend Jerry and some of the Christian Coalition members. For example, the Ten Commandments has nothing to do with the county commission meeting. I think we should have a prayer. I think a prayer should set the tone. I am all in favor of praying in Jesus' name. I don't care. I'm not here to listen to the prayer. I'm here to listen to what's going on at the county commission meeting. If you want to pray in our Holy Father's name, you don't even want to mention Jesus' name. I don't have a problem with that either. Some people do. I don't. But I'm here because there's a political issue that does not involve God. And you do God's name as a disservice. Okay, let me break this down a little bit more. Some people look back and go, well, that guy supports raising taxes. That's not a Christian thing to do. I don't agree with it. I don't support raising taxes, not because it's a non-Christian thing. It's a non-free market thing. Oh, I mean, does God really have a view on the local tax? Do you believe that God has a view on a local land regulation program? Does God have a view on his supervisor elections? No, he does not. If that is the case, then why in the world do we have elected officials? If that is the case, then why do I have a choice of who I vote for? If not, why don't I just let God take care of everything? And what I'm getting at is I think God's name is used as a disservice. God's name can be invoked into politics on some of the issues. Whether you believe it should be an abortion, whether you believe it's in same-sex marriage, yeah, those issues are somewhat biblical. I don't need to use the Bible to tell you why I'm not supporting of same-sex marriage. I don't need to use the Bible to tell you why I may be pro-life. I think it's a worthwhile scientific argument on some of these. Doesn't mean I'm exactly right. I'm just saying I don't have to mix Bible on my issues. And what I'm getting at here, and I'll get to more of this moment with the Ted Cruz point, is that I don't need, and I do not go into the voting booth. And when I'm voting for a local city council individual who's going to be voting on, I don't know, FPL, Power, the Indian River Lagoon, I don't sit back and say, WWWJD, what would Jesus do? No. What do you, the voter, what would you do? You're the guy that's paying the bills. You're the guy that has, or the female, excuse me. You're the individual that has to live here. It's what would you do? God has given you a responsibility to be good stewards of the land. And as some of us someday will be accountable to God for our actions, the county commission, as of right now, is accountable to you, not to God. They're accountable to you. You're paying the bills. I do not sit back on a certain local regulation or on an issue. I do not sit back and go in the voting booths and say, how would God vote on this? Sorry, folks, I'm respectful to God. I leave him out. Oh, are you kidding? Does God not belong in your life? Heck yeah, he's a big part of my life, as he should be. But God has allowed me to make it. He's like a father. My father plays a big part of my life and my parents. But the older you get, when you're married, have kids, he gives you advice, but you're the one that pulls the switch. You're the one that has to put down that car payment. Well, I mean, today, older parents are still there, some of you. Anyways, you're the one that has to make that decision. Your parents give you advice. My God opens the door, and he allows me to walk through it. I'm happy just about that. But if there's no decisions made on you and me, then it's kind of like saying, well, it's like if there's no decisions made on elected areas, I should just let my city government just dictate everything, make them this. No, you have to have a voice in it. I'm just telling you is some voices are not needed in other voices. When it comes to a local issue, I do not and I will not misuse God's name. And some of you we've debated this. I don't know why this is a big issue. What would God do? Hey, listen, folks, what would you do? It's your back pocket. It is your regulation. How do you believe it affects your livelihood? How do you believe it affects your pocketbook? How do you believe it affects your property? your taxes and your spending, that vote locally is left up to you. Now, if you're in the federal area and you sit back and say, well, Barack Obama's a liberal here, and okay, fine. If you want to interject God, then go ahead. In fact, if you want to interject God in a local area, go ahead. I'm just telling you that we have to think for ourselves. That's the reason why the good Lord allows us to make decisions. It's called free choice. Kind of what the market allows you to have. Kind of what our founding fathers had. To allow us to have a freedom of, not freedom from, but freedom of a church-run state, which was happening in England. The freedom of expression here in the media. I mean, you have the freedom of it. And we have a choice. But to some of my conservative friends, and I've had this debate with some of my religious friends, I do not invoke God's name on a local land use regulation when I go into the voting booth and I pull the switch or I write it down. That is my decision that God, through a brain and through creation, has allowed me and placed me to make my own decision here. Because you cannot find scripture, you cannot find any comments based on the Bible. How do I deal with this right-of-way issue? Is Alderboard Florida? What chapter in scripture is that in? The issue of, I don't know, regulating a sales tax to pay for schools or imposing the local option gas tax. Well, how does God invoke in all of this? He is not. You, the consumer out there, have to make the decision. Can I ask you a question? Do you invoke God? I hope you do through a prayer, but if not, that's no problem. I'm not saying you have to. But do you pray about the decision about where you want to go for dinner? No, I talk it over to you, talk it over your husband, you talk it over your wife. I mean, come on, folks. But yet, some of my religious friends, and that's fine, at least you're focused on the right areas. But do your homework for yourself. And I'll tell you why I'm getting this in a second. I was with some in-laws yesterday. One of our friends and families is from Dallas, and he's Hispanic, but he's not a big Ted Cruz fan. I said, well, why? He goes, well, he's got all this evangelical. And he goes, I don't like it. I said, we don't like Ted Cruz, you don't like the evangelicals. He goes, no. He goes, he doesn't like some of his views. And I said, well, what was the view? And I didn't get offended. He says, Ted Cruz promotes this creationism. And I was like, okay, well, to me, is the earth old? Is the earth young? Who cares? Personally, I don't think the earth is that old. That's just a view because, I mean, if we're now in the 21st century at cell phones, but we're 2 billion years old, shouldn't we be at cell phones, I don't know, maybe 5, 10 million years ago? I'm just saying this. I mean, technology's rampant the last 100 years. I know I'm probably wrong. I don't know. I think we're at a young earth. I don't know. And I don't really care. All I know is I'm able to eat, live, breathe, make a dollar, give to my church. That's all that cares about. To all you liberals out there, what about the creationism and you are the Flat Earth Society? Who cares? I mean, I'm not saying this to be disrespectful to our family friend. I mean, I think it's bringing up. I mean, heck, at least somebody brought it up. But to me, and I'm not slamming him whatsoever, but he brought up something I haven't heard for a while. I thought, hey, that's a pretty good issue, creationism. I didn't realize creationism was an issue. Now, if you promote it and some of my conservative friends go out of their way, well, I mean, really, guys? I mean, I got Obamacare, I got financial problems in this country, and you want to bring up creationism? If you're doing that on my side of the aisle, shame on you guys. When we come back from the break, I'll tell you where creationism has a role in our government. And I think you know where I'm going with this. Back in a few moments. The email address, eddeanradio@gmail.com, eddeanradio@gmail.com. You want to watch me live on the air, just go to eddeanradio.com, eddeanradio.com. It is the Ed Dean Radio Show. My mouthpiece came out twice. My mouthpiece came out twice. Couldn't believe that. I'm embarrassed. Nobody knew that.
Don't worry, if you sit it across the room, I'll come get it.
No. Nobody will know. I told them I had coffee, but I mean, see, I just refuse. I mean, when I get the new ones in, it'd be so much better. But I mean, my swollen's, I had it 3 months ago, so it's gone now. But I mean, my point I'm getting at is that I refuse to put polygrip on it. I just refuse. I hate the taste. It's nasty. I don't tell people you're not going to false people.
They have that. It's like a tape, though, instead of the goo.
Yeah, but here's the problem. What if you go eat, Jody? I have to take mine when I'm done eating. I have to rinse out.
Lick it off. I do the same thing. I hate it. I hate it. But thank God I kept what I.
Yeah, you got good teeth. You can't tell.
Well, yeah, but I kept what I had.
Yeah, my wife calls me Cletus.
Because at least I can, you know, cook for something so that it doesn't fall out.
And she calls me Carl from Stripes.
Are you cold or are you?
No,
good?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Are you cold?
No, I have a jacket. I'm good.
Well,
look at the windows.
What does that mean?
That means it's hot outside and freezing in here. No, it's good. You got to be comfortable. I'm fine. I'm fine with sleep. I'm used to it.
You know, Rhett talks about having his own TV show. You put the webcams in here, dude. Glenn Beck does it through the webcast. I'm telling you, he can increase his numbers and his cost for advertising. There's a difference between a media guy and a marketing guy. The media guy can tell you we need to do this, do that, and the marketing guy then gets it out and shows you how to market it. Big difference. I don't think Red knows that. Hey, some days they come in here and this thing's going to be missing. A harmonica? Are you kidding me? Oh my word. Yeah. Where's Johnny T? John Travolta? Back known as today, his name was John Revolta. I've actually been near his house where he flies the planes out of. Okay, anyways, more of the Ed Dean Radio Show. Let me explain this before we go to the top of the hour. Bob Solari is going to join us. It'll be a fun hour. Bob's not really that boring. I like Bob. But he's with me, so it will never be that boring. There is a place for creationism. Not through mandate. Let me explain this real quick. Got into a little discussion, not a debate. It was fine. You know me, I'm the son of a minister. You don't like creationism? You don't like some of the way the evangelicals? It doesn't bother me. Heck, as long as you still vote for less government, you're fine in my book. I know atheists that are conservative. Yeah, it's true. Not many of them, but they're conservative. Heck, I know gay people that are right-wingers. They're out there, folks. All right? The media just never wants to focus on them. But this is what I'm getting at. If you're a politician and you want to talk about your religious views, you go ahead. The market will decide. The market is the voter. You're the market. You're the voter. You'll decide whether his or she's views or her views are not kosher with yours. I talk about if I ran for office, I talk about my belief in God, my faith, my family. Let me focus on the issues. It's 98% of it should all be on the issues. This is what I'm getting at. If you're offended if you think because some guy thinks creationism, that the earth is young, hey, that's fine. I have no problem with that. If you want to vote against that guy based on, you have the right to do that. I'm just telling you there's more important issues. But that's fine. I have no problem with that. Let me say that one more time. If creationism, if you believe that the earth is young, 8,000 to 10,000 years old, my only thing is this, I don't know, man. You know something? I really don't care. It's a fun discussion to talk about. But that's fine. I don't have a problem. But now, this is going to anger some of my conservative friends. So let me set this up. If we're going to teach evolutionism in school, I say then you must teach creationism just as a balance. That's all. Intelligent design, which is more of a politically correct term from the conservatives to talk about God. No, whatever, just say creationism. All I'm getting at here is that I don't even think creationism or evolutionism, should even be brought up in the public schools. Now, you want to bring it up as a once a year as a summary that has to do with something, okay, that's fine. But the point is I'm too busy trying to teach kids how to read, write, and spell. Creationism or evolutionism has nothing to do with you getting a job. This is what I'm getting at. Keep him out there too, Jody, will you? I know some of you guys walking in on it. Like they're the police. Anyways. That's what I'm getting at. Is that if you want to teach it, that's fine. If we're going to teach evolutionism, I say balance it out with creationism. I'm consistent on that. But I also will admit that evolution, a lot like creationism, is based on a belief. It is based on faith. Now, I can somehow defend the Bible historically, not so much on faith. Yeah, I mean, I could on faith, but based on historical facts that are proven to be right. Can I do that in evolution? Maybe. I don't know. But what I'm trying to tell you is that some people demand that creationism should be taught in the public schools. I got news for you, folks. Arts are great, but it's secondary when it comes to kids learning how to speak English, spell, write, think, biology, science, and learn how to count, math, without all the nonsense from Common Core. So if you want to teach it, you teach it along with evolution. It's both based on faith. All I'm getting at is that is there a role? If you want to balance it out, go ahead. But what I'm getting at is stop interjecting God's name into areas that do not need to be interjected. Again, I'm voting on all the board Florida. I'm voting for it or against it. It's not a religious thing. What would God do? God's telling you, or He's giving you the brain, what would you do? Well, if it's going to increase my taxes, no. If it's not going to increase my taxes but bring in jobs, I'm supporting all the board Florida. A land use regulation, a water use regulation. God is not invoked in that, nor should He be invoked. How would you take it when you go to the polls? I don't take God with me to the polls, folks. I know what my back pocket says. I know what my belief says. I know what my viewpoint says. God has allowed me the opportunity, He's allowed me the brains and the smarts to detect things that I may not agree with. But I'm not going to sit here and speak for God and what God's views are on the zoning ordinance, on a sales tax. No, that's for you, the consumer, to decide. Listen, if the consumers want a higher sales tax to support schools or support road projects, and it's voter approved, more power to you. I will stand by your decision. I will not take you to a judge to overturn it. It is the will of the people. I may not agree with it, but I am consistent. I'm a consistent conservative. Unlike many others out there who, well, it's this way, and I'll go to the wind with that way. No, I'm pretty much consistent. I'm just saying is stop taking religion into everything when you do a disservice to the name of your faith. And to me, that is even more embarrassing. It should not be what would Jesus do. It should be what would you do. How would you vote in this bill? If it's for a voter approval, how do you vote in this sales tax? How do you vote in extending the local option gas tax? How do you vote in increasing or cutting property taxes? This is something that is left to the voters. Because if God's going to make the decision for everything, there's no need for me even to be alive. That is what I'm getting at. All right, coming up, I hope some of you catch all what I'm saying here. Because I normally get boatloads of emails. I'm like, you guys didn't listen to what was said here. So, anyways, all right, you want to watch a live broadcast of the radio show? Again, you can go to eddeanradio.com, eddeanradio.com. The email address is eddeanradio@gmail.com, eddeanradio@gmail.com. Twitter is @eddeanradio. What else? I see. I got Facebook.com/eddeanradio. And Facebook.com, just look for Ed Dean. You see the Blaze hanging on, all that stuff. So picked up all around the state. Also, a few other stations in Georgia and Carolina. I think a couple out in Texas somewhere. I don't know. I can't keep up with everything. So, anyways, I don't have to. This way, I don't have to claim. I can be like the president here. I don't. If something messes up, I don't have to claim responsibility for it. So that's the safest way I can sit back and say. Bob Solar is going to come up the next hour. He's going to hang out with me. He does not know my questions. They're not prearranged. I didn't pull professional wrestling tactics, which means it's not fake, it's prearranged. So he has no clue what kind of questions I'll ask him about All Aboard Florida, or about 750, or about some other things. So we'll ask him all this. He's going to hang out with me in the next hour. Again, the email address, eddeanradio@gmail.com, eddeanradio@gmail.com. I'm chatting with many of you also through Facebook, also with Twitter. And again, you can watch us live on the air at eddeanradio.com, eddeanradio.com. Also through iHeartRadio. Just go to iHeart.com and type in the call letters WAXE. All right, get your bagels, your donut, your coffee. Sit back and enjoy it. I promise you the second hour will be good and entertained. Put on the seatbelt. This is the fastest 2 hours anywhere in Florida Talk Radio. It is the Ed Dean Radio Show. Hey, bro. I did not know. Here. Hey, Joe, you working in the radio out here somewhere? Is it back there?
Yeah, right.
Oh, I'll be up right on that. Bob. What mic should he? What's the loudest mic? Is it in the middle? It's in the middle. We don't need headsets. Just get okay. Just you know how you've been here before. Just don't just move it up and down through this stuff like that. All right, so we'll talk a little all aboard because they're all listening. I can promise you. I will tell you this about Matt. Matt's loyal. Matt goes, you know, I don't agree with Bob because you know when he runs, I'm going to be running that campaign. I said, well, good. Yeah, keep going. He's loyal, man. Matt and I, we get on very well. We differ some stuff, but he's loyal, and I'll take loyalty above anything else. I assume he's still loyal. So anyways, I mean, we go golfing. He goes, you know what? He goes, I don't agree with a lot because you know what? Bob Still, he's the best one up there. He goes, you know, for county, he's going to be the best state house, state Bob. You know what? Those are people I like. People I disagree with, I'm still getting their support. I'm not going to them all away, you know. Okay, we'll talk a little 750. We'll talk all about Florida. So you follow my bit.
I shall do that. To the best of my ability, sir.
I just got to hear music coming in. That's all. All right, 5 minutes after the top of the hour. The Ed Dean Radio Show, heard all throughout the state, syndicated all throughout the state. Thank you so much for tuning in as we broadcast live every morning, 6 to 8 a.m. Why? Because that's all the time the man will allow us to have. So anyway, his email address, eddeanradio@gmail.com, eddeanradio@gmail.com. You can watch us live on the air, the webcast. Ladies are happy now. The webcast was down here for about an hour, so they were Facebooking me anyways. So the webcast is up. Just go to eddeanradio.com, eddeanradio.com. Again, that's eddeanradio.com. And Twitter's at eddeanradio, facebook.com/eddeanradio. County Commissioner Bob Solari's been on. Goes back to a few years. He's been hanging out with me. I want to get him live in the studios. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine, Ed. How are you today?
I'm doing well, man. I'm gonna get into this all aboard Florida argument with you. I heard they didn't make you a
discussion.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Did I say argument? I'm sorry. Nice, friendly analysis.
Exactly. What we want is a dialogue.
Is that what we had the other day?
No, we didn't have that, unfortunately. But that's what we're trying to get.
I will tell you about the. Is it called the Indian River Taxpayers Association? What do you call it?
Taxpayers Association of Indian River County.
Okay. All right. Well, I gotta set the webcam right. Then the ladies start getting a little.
Everyone see.
That's right. We're having a good time. I like what they did the other day. I thought the questions were pretty good.
I thought the questions.
I wrote the questions. To be honest with you, they're that good.
I thought they went right down the middle. They're on both sides.
Yeah, I think they were pretty good. I'm going to get into this all aboard Florida here with you in a little bit. 750. I've been a reporter the last 20 years, and by the way, there's nothing new under the political sun. This was talked about 20 years ago in Central Florida. It's called regionalism. If the I-4 corridor connects, we all must be the same. I do not like that. I've never liked that. The 750 plan, I have properly dissected this thing down. Is this still in the air right now, discussion as far as it could still happen?
Well, two things. First of all, of course it's not new. Plato talked about this in the Republic. The 750.
I'm talking about Florida.
Oh, yes, but I mean, I'm talking about it's not being new. Basically, this is just another plan where the elites tell us how to live. So that's one part of it.
Okay, but the elites are in Florida. They're not up in the U.N.
No, the elites are both in Florida and in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
This is sent down to us by the Housing and Urban Development with help from the EPA and FDOT. Now, if those are three of your favorite federal agencies, good for you, but they scared me to death.
Yeah, they are.
Just understand, each one of them has their own police agency for just starters, and each one of them are driven by basically a socialist ideology. So when I read the document...
And it is, by the way. That's not a soundbite. You're exactly right.
Oh, it is. And that was clear when I first read the backup, the foundation document for the 750 process, which was basically put out by HUD.
Explain to the audience in Florida, because again, in other parts of Florida, it's called central regionalism. Explain what 750 is in layman's terms.
Okay, Congress a few years ago put out $150 million for regional planning and directed that regional planning to be led by HUD up in Washington, the EPA, and Florida Department of Transportation. And basically, it wants to do 2 or 3 things. One is it wants to promote transportation-oriented development, which is basically high-density development along rail corridors. It's one of those things where they want to get you out of your cars into public transportation. And it basically, the elite up in Washington understands how you ought to live. They want to make sure that it's all socially diverse. It wants to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to live next to everybody else, regardless of whether they want to or not.
Everybody's going to be able to live in the same Habitat for Humanity house.
Exactly. So it's wonderful. So and at the end of the day,
pretty much where you'll be at.
You'll be able to just lower your windows and hear everybody singing Kumbaya. But it doesn't allow individuals to make individual choices about the nature of their life.
Okay, throw me a bone. What's bad about? I know it's. But give me something that we might be talking about. What's bad about 750?
If you read the 750 document, which is 300 pages, which I've read, basically it's implemented through a series of subsidies. Basically, if you actually look and analyze it, it's a wish list to try to get co-op everybody and everybody's wishes.
That's right. Miami along with Bureau.
Everybody. But it's basically supposedly driven by subsidies. And you cannot subsidize your way to prosperity. And we have a tremendous debt in this country, and I believe myself that the debt we have, the $17 trillion of debt, the $120 billion of unfunded liabilities, is immoral. Basically, you and I, well, more me than you because I'm older than you, we're living large today, but the burden's going to be on our children and grandchildren. And we're bankrupting the country because we want to live large today.
All right, let me, Bob Solari, my good friend, Indian River County Commissioner, here in the studios with us. We're going to be talking and debating some issues, maybe in a good way, about the All Aboard Florida. As when I started out as a news reporter back in the '93, and I was there for years on print and talk radio, when I saw this thing of regionalism, and by the way, this is being supported by Chamber of Commerce's and some other pro-business groups. By the way, I'm pro-market. I'm not always pro-business because business is supported like the high-speed rail, which I was against. I'm pro-market. Big difference. Now, let me explain what regionalism, and I'm not talking, you already know what I'm getting at. I'm just going to do a little more layman's terms. If Fellsmere or Sebastian, and among the 750 or regionalism, and West Palm sits back and says, we want to have this big region, I mean, we're not going to involve Miami or Fort Lauderdale, but it'd be West Palm, be a big city. We'll bring in Fellsmere, and we'll promote jobs, and in those job creation, we'll divvy up the money properly among all the communities. Sounds good. We don't do that already because school boards and other districts get more money and less money. So it's number one, the government doesn't have a good job track record of proportionate amount of money when they disperse it. But number two is once you have this regional planning, West Palm goes, oh, by the way, we're at a 9.5 cent mill. We're almost max. We're going to extend the local option gas tax by 3 or 4 cents. And by the way, not all the jobs are being created. We need to create enough revenue, so let's increase the sales tax. Oh, by the way, Fellsmere, you're in our region. Guess what? You got to pay the same tax as well. That is one of the biggest reasons why I'm against it. If West Palm wants to have a 9.8 mills and max it out, and Fellsmere sits back or Sebastian sits back and says, well, I want 3 or 4 mills, that is every right, the autonomy, own independence of each city to do that. I do not want to be paying the same tax rate as West Palm or Fort Lauderdale. Does that make sense?
Well, it does, and that's our competitive advantage.
Yes, thank you.
It's a low-tax community, and we have a very good infrastructure, and we have a few positive things for business development. And that's why, over the next 10 years, we're going to be a lot more competitive than surrounding counties.
Yeah.
Surrounding counties, during the boom of 2005, 2008, they bought businesses, and some of them, like Digital Domain, just blew up. But we didn't do that to that extent in Indian River County, and we spent the last 5 years basically making sure that we were fiscally secure and sound, and we're going forward with a real, very strong foundation.
One of the biggest complaints I have against the feds is that they totally abuse the Interstate Commerce Clause. For example, Interstate Commerce was pretty much agreed that Bob is the governor of Georgia, I'm the governor of Florida. We have a common agreement to pass through the state legislature that, okay, Bob's goods will come to Florida, I export my goods to Georgia. And Congress was just like the judge. Congress sits back and says, we're sitting out, but if Bob has a dispute, we'll be the final arbiter. That pretty much was what it was. the problem is when we started building the interstate, I-95. Well, wait a second. Congress sits back and says, well, it's in all these states. We have to regulate commerce, so let's just kind of abuse this problem. But it's amazing because cops can only go to the borderline. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yes.
I mean, I can make some of this. It just totally blows this thing up in a way where we would totally go beyond the scope of focus. So what the arguments are is what I'm getting at is the regional planning argument is well, if the turnpike goes through Indian River County or it goes through Broward, then that must mean we connect ourselves. So let's expand more of a regional planning. And I guess the thing, I guess I said that really scares me is that that's just not the case. And I do not want to be in the same tax system as South Florida.
No, either do I. But one of the big things is you mentioned Palm Beach. Palm Beach County is not like Indian River County or Martin County or St. Lucie County. Yet we're in the same region, and Palm Beach dwarfs us in size.
Right.
So Palm Beach is the driver. So we're going, once we get involved in regionalism, we're going in Palm Beach's direction. And they're just going to carry us with us. This
Right.
is similar to what's happened with All Aboard Florida. The mega regions that want it have 8 million people. We in the Treasure Coast have less than 600,000
When you
people.
sit with people and talk to them about 750, because one of the biggest things that people move up from South Florida is because they say we don't want to look like South Florida. I just don't see this type of 750 passing. Do you hear support for it?
No, there's very, very little support in 750
Once they find out
in
about
River
it.
County,
Right.
except for people who will financially benefit directly from it.
Right.
The biggest supporters of it are planners and big developers who will benefit from the flow of funds coming down for this type of
Right.
thing. The biggest supporters are the planners. They're just licking their chops over this because it means that they're going to have these big city center projects, which they love. They're called basically signature products. They're going to get their 50-story buildings. They're going to get their auditoriums.
That's
their
not going to
convention
happen in
centers.
Vero Beach.
Oh, no. But again, what people don't understand is, well, where's the money going to go? When HUD,
I agree.
when HUD and EPA and FDOT decide that they want to start shaping the system, what are they going to do? They're not going to tell us what to do. They're not going to demand what they're going to do. They're just going to suggest what to do. And they're going to say, oh, we've got $10 million in grant money. If you do A, B, and C, you get it. Oh, if you don't do A, B, and C, you don't get it. Palm Beach is going to jump on it just like they jumped on All Aboard Florida and other.
And we're going to get that in a few moments. This is
But-
go. I mean,
But that's what they're going to use. They're going to use our tax dollars, which we send up to Washington to bribe us to give them what they want.
I'm with
That's a pernicious system.
more of the Ed Dean Radio Show. The email address, eddeanradio@gmail.com, eddeanradio@gmail.com. You want to watch us live on the air here on the Ed Dean Radio Show, you can go to eddeanradio.com, eddeanradio.com. Indian River County Commissioner Bob Solari hanging out in the studios with us. I'll get to the All Aboard Florida here. I'll tell you another thing here about the 750 plan is that what's going to happen is that if we try to move all the jobs to West Palm, because there is no competitiveness, as you pointed out, between Sebastian or Vero, then when I lose these jobs to West Palm, what is the government going to do to promote business in my backyard? I'll give you an example. I had Kevin Doyle, who was with the Consumer Energy Alliance on the show this past week. He's with the Florida group down here. And he says, you know what they're doing up in West Virginia? He goes, the Obama crowd is killing the coal industry, but they're coming around the back door and said, well, hey, we're going to throw money at you. Well, I said, what are they promoting? He says, ecotourism. Listen, ecotourism is good among certain aspects of the St. John's, Indian River Lagoon, but it does not suffice what a city needs to live off when it comes to tax revenue, and that's what's going to happen in these 750.
What do you mean? You don't want to spend 3 days and 3 nights in a coal mine? Look at the structure of it?
No, I really
what
go
a
hunt.
silly- Oh, my goodness. Well, you might be able to hunt rats in the coal mine.
Maybe so. All right, let me do this. Let me take a quick break. When we come back from the break, I'll talk about, I don't know, we'll go a little bit all over Florida. All right? As you called them the other day, a bunch of robber barons.
Well, they believe that that's the right type of mentality to have.
All right, well, we'll talk about that in a few moments. All right. Coming up here, Bob Solari on here with the Ed Dean Radio Show. Again, the email address, eddeanradio@gmail.com, eddeanradio@gmail.com. This part of the program is brought to you by the Taxpayers Protection Alliance. Their website is protectingtaxpayers.org, protectingtaxpayers.org. More of the Ed Dean Radio Show back in a few moments. So Newsmax, which is huge, they're on DirecTV and Dish Network. So I had to go up to D.C. So anyways, now one of their whatever weekly guest. So I go down to West Palm. Time I go down to West Palm, I got to take a shower when I come back. I can't stand it. I get stations down there picking up my show, and I'm blessed. But so I said they do everything through Skype, and I'm like, why don't I just go down to the studios? So we'll send you a car. I'm like, dude, I live an hour and a half. We'll still send you a car. But anyways, when I travel down there, when I hear the liberals talk about smart growth, I don't know if I like smart growth. I think Bureau's got brilliant growth. Now, listen, I know a lot of the Republicans are very much pro-environmental. This is not a conservative like we think, especially in Fort Pierce, very moderate area. I am all for the growth, but let me tell you what I like about Bureau. Behind all the trees are the nice houses, and it's beautiful. That to me is smart growth. You don't find that in certain areas of West Palm. I mean, I understand about growth, and I'm all about business. I'm just saying, fine. I mean, I want to do it with less regulation, with less code enforcement. But I mean, it is a concrete jungle down there.
Yes.
And they all itch and complain about growth. But you guys invited it all, you know.
And they continue to invite it all.
It's fine with me,
but don't bring it here.
Yeah. So what do you do for recreation? What do you
read?
Really?
Work in my garden.
Play golf, doing sports?
Nope. Hike, walk. We just came back from 2 weeks of hiking in Colorado.
Nice and cool.
Oh yeah. Mornings were 45 degrees, up to 70, 75.
Some of the people was telling me they were up in Indiana and central Tennessee and just cool at 60 degrees, 50 degrees.
Oh.
I mean, wow. During the summer, it's been very
hotter.
Very, yeah, it's been in the Midwest. It's been very mild in the summer. You know.
But sometimes in the Midwest it can just be blazingly hot.
I'll be glad when the winter gets some summer gets done here. It's not the hot. It's fucking rain, man.
Kind of nice rainy summer.
Yeah, we still got plenty of water.
Yeah.
So we'll get through all aboard Florida here, and yeah, I thought the taxpayers. I mean, they were some real good questions. I mean, you get a few people. Oh, 3 minutes. I'm like, okay, whatever. But I mean, that was a good turnout.
The whole thing was well done.
And by the way, I like it mixed up. I want to see some people mix it up. I don't see a bunch of bipartisan shit. I mean, yeah, I don't care what side you're on. I mean, people want to see the difference.
I agree. That's right. So you're doing this 5 mornings a week here?
But the other stations are carry the shows taped and everything. Like, and I do the afternoon drive of it. Well, it's in Brevard. It's out of MEL Studios, but it's other parts of the state. All right. "21 minutes after the top of the hour, it is the Ed Dean Radio Show, #1 talk show in the state. Thank you so much for tuning in. The email address, eddeanradio@gmail.com, eddeanradio@gmail.com, facebook.com/eddeanradio, or go to Twitter, is @eddeanradio. You want to watch us live on the air, just go to eddeanradio.com, eddeanradio.com. All right, so I'm looking at the, by the way, Bob Solari, who's also, besides being an Indian River County Commissioner, he's, I mean, you come on talk radio, so I call you a political commentator. Indian River, I'm elevating you.
Hi.
Indian River Press Journal. Here's an article about Posey and Patrick Murphy. Posey and Murphy asked the Government Accountability Office to review rail. It's not a new topic. Rail's been around for years. All Aboard Florida, you are a staunch opponent of All Aboard Florida. Now, I'm going to ask you these questions, all right? So here we go. Every conservative individual, and you're a conservative, I'm a conservative, it's just not you. I mean, there are other individuals like Trudy Infantini in Brevard and a bunch of them in South Florida. Hey, their claim to fame is we all supported All Aboard Florida. Now I'm finding out that several of you people are against it. Why? Why the change?
Well, the main reason is because when they first came to us, they said it was a private project on private property, funded privately. And then we find out later, through the media, that they're going for a RIF loan.
Okay, let me interrupt you for a second. You come to me as a group looking to expand. It sounds like business. Sounds good. Day one, do you get my support? No. When did you originally support All Aboard Florida? Was it after 3 or 4 meetings with them, or was it after the 1 meeting? When did you jump on the bandwagon?
Well, it's not so much jumping on the bandwagon. It's when they came.
Excuse me. When did you jump on the train?
Oh, I grabbed the caboose when the man from All Aboard Florida came, explained the project, and said it was completely privately financed, private company, private property. So I thought, as a government official, it was none of my business. Remember, county commissioners don't have much to do directly with rail.
Right.
And if it was a completely private project, why do I want to inject myself into it?
How many meetings did they have?
They had 1 initially.
Okay, just 1. When did you, after how many meetings, okay, let's just break this down. I just want people to understand your position here. Was it after one meeting, two meetings that you sat back and said, hey, I think I could support this?
No, after one meeting.
Okay.
None of my business.
Okay.
And we're basically a very pro-business county in River County, so why would I want to get in the way?
I understand that. I'm just saying
Just
sometimes, like,
that doesn't take long.
It takes a few people to convince me on some things.
But it's not my job to be convinced in something like that. If they're obeying all the laws and it has nothing to do with anything which I have jurisdiction, why do I want to get in the way? I'm not here to add another burden to somebody's business plan.
You're either in the way one way or the other, Bob, because now you're in the way of the
Well, now because they didn't tell the truth. That upsets me when people come to my office and don't tell the truth.
Now, when did you find? I'm trying to lead us down the road. Here's how the interview. So I'm saying this is when was it that you were sitting back going, there's something not right here? Was it after a public hearing? Did some people call you?
It started around
a month or later, 2 months later.
It was basically citizens started realizing the problems it was going to cause in their community, and they started talking and generating a lot of conversation. And then the RIF loan came to the fore. And realized that, well, this is not a private project anymore. They're asking for $1.6 billion of taxpayer money to make their project a success. Now it's in the public. Now, as an elected official, I've got a fiduciary duty to make sure those tax dollars are protected if they're coming through our community.
When I stand up against liberalism, and there's a lot to stand up against. If I don't like certain things that Governor Scott or former Governor Cruz or President Obama, I don't list a laundry list, even though I could. It's usually one or two. It's about the economy. It's usually a few issues. When people have come to you, what has been, I know there's 4 issues. Give me one. What has been their main issue against all the board Florida?
Well, in our community, one of the main issues is that it comes through and is probably going to damage the community with no benefits to the Treasure Coast. That's one. Second one is purely safety. FEC, the rail line, not all aboard Florida, but the rail line, has had something like 71 deaths in the last 15 years. And all aboard Florida won't even mention that. And remember, this is 71 deaths with a slow-moving freight train.
Right.
A lot of people, and I believe, are rightly concerned when you add 32 passenger trains a day going 110 miles an hour, that the probability, and that's all I'm saying, the probability of increased deaths goes up. So, but they don't mention that. So that's the second problem. The third problem is the loss of property values in the areas around the train, and people already being affected by that. And the fourth is, again, they feel that because it's their tax dollars that are going to make this a success, if it is a success, that they've got the right to know the basic information.
Okay, let's take this one by one. The train, we've had, give me the argument against 51 deaths because of what?
71 deaths on the railroad tracks in the last 15 years.
You know I've had more deaths in the last 5 years than I-95?
No, that's fine. But we talk about the problems of I-95 and we try to fix them. But
how do you fix I-95? Slow or increase the speeding? How do you fix them?
Better drivers.
Well, okay, but you don't get that choice with the train, right?
The fact is you're going to have accidents in life, and I understand that. And I'm not saying that all aboard Florida has to guarantee 0 accidents, but let's have the discussion. Well, our citizens have the right to have a discussion about the safety problems of all aboard Florida. They say that safety is their overriding priority.
And
if that's the truth, then let's discuss the deaths. So you can't, on the one hand, say it's their unwavering priority, and then just hide it in the closet. That's not the truth.
We're having a good, fun discussion. But when I come back and look at the articles years ago about I-95 or expanding the turnpike, that same type of concern was brought up by voters in those areas.
Well,
we don't have it, but we have it. We deal with it.
Yes, but we had a discussion about it.
There's
no discussion about it yet.
But we have a discussion about it. But the discussion is we shouldn't have the discussion. We shouldn't have it because it's going to cause deaths.
Well, no, we're not saying that we shouldn't have the project because it's going to cause deaths, but let's have a discussion to make sure that we're doing all we can to make sure our citizens are protected and at least reduce the number of deaths.
All right, I got to end this discussion for this segment, otherwise I'm going to have a death here on radio. All right, back in a few moments, my good friend Bob Solari, Indian River County Commissioner. A lot more on the all aboard Florida as I will break it down for you very theoretically as it should be done. This is the Ed Dean Radio Show. See what happens.
What?
Well,
oh, yeah.
You didn't ask me to say.
Is Matt still in town?
Yeah, he's been in town quite a bit.
No, I mean, he's still in town now. I mean,
I don't know. I think so.
He'll be listening to it today.
Redinger was supposed to be on this week. Listen, Mike seems like a very I don't know. Mike's big. Listen, I like this. I mean, sometimes I'm all about business, but we cut up. mean, you know, that's fun. Sometimes I think you need to cut up. I don't think Jackie's funny enough for you. But anyway, I love your wife. My wife, Jackie's is one of the most personable people. So anyways, but anyways, yeah, we couldn't understand why we saw when we were walking 2 years ago. Remember, it was like, I might seen Solari signs and the same signs with Donadio and all that. Like, I don't think that's Bob's fault, okay? But we were putting out Leslie's stuff. I was putting out Leslie's campaigns and Kogan's. Anyways, and is it Mike? I mean, but I mean, the guy, he's all business. And you know what? I kind of like that. I don't want a guy, I mean, but I mean, like Rusty. Rusty's just one of the most personal guys I know. I mean, these guys are getting paid to do a job. I understand that. Mm-hmm. I just think it's man, and I'll say this in front of Mike, and I think just the timing, there's two ways to look at this. Nobody, as of lately, likes rail. And one of the discussions we'll talk about is because, are there any taxpayers' money with this? Which I've been told that there is, not by them, but by news groups who have just an analysis on this, don't have a real position. But I mean, the Sunrail, listen, the Florida's going to have to pick up the tab for Sunrail. I've had a lot of these coming on my radio show going, you know, out here. I lobby for the city of Castleberry, and we're going to raise our sales tax to promote it, blah, blah, blah.
Well, this is Tri-Rail.
And Tri-Rail. And then these guys, listen, no offense, these guys do not make a profit. No, one part of the Sunrail may make or Tri-Rail. Yeah. But I mean, overall, does not make a profit. But what I'm getting at is that there's two sides of the coin. I understand one. It's just the voters just don't like the taste of rail right now. I mean, back to back. But then again, I understand why they want to do it while the iron's hot, because tourism is booming in Florida, a lot because of warm weather and stuff like that. So I understand the balance of.
I can understand a lot of that, but still, tell the truth about it. That's what they.
Yeah, I mean, I've had politicians where up in like Brevard and other, they support it, and I've had other politicians go, you know, I hear one thing, I talk, you know, they all meet at the League of Cities, and this guy tells me something else. So I don't know what all. That's why I like to find out, and I'll ask more questions about it. You know, and if you put your finger on them all, if you had to. This one had the most credibility because there's more private money. I mean, my goodness, I mean, if I had to throw them a bone, at least that's one good thing. Unlike, you know, Sunrail, I mean, there's more private money, but for example, when it came to high-speed rail, there wasn't one private investor with that.
No, it's better than Amtrak. I'll compliment that right off the bat. But
yeah. I just think that our side of the aisle, again, when I'm against the president, he's usually based on the economy, Obama. I mean, I keep it simple. Unfortunately, one thing about this is it's on my if you like the trains, the 32 stops. I'm like, well, before the recession hit, we had 32 trains going at 20 miles an hour. Well, I'm like, just give me one or two that are good and legit, and let's get on focus on that. Not 20 reasons why you hate the train. That's what I'm saying. Because then we're like a construction project. I'm just saying, let's get if you're going to get your talking points down, you know, on both sides, and I guess I just takes me out sometimes. I think our side we only get one shot. The other side, like the media. If they miss, they got a Gatling gun ready. You know. What are you doing this weekend? Just chilling, working in the garden?
Working in the garden.
Won't be as hot this weekend, they say. So
that'd be nice.
Yeah, we'll have to hook up and do more coffee and stuff like that. You know.
What?
So we'll have to hook up and do more radio, more coffee. You come in, like I said.
Just tell me how often you want me.
Yeah, whatever. I'll do some panel stuff. I just don't want to be talking about because I'm in other markets. I don't want to just focus on the power in River County.
No, absolutely. I need a subject or a theme, so I can.
Don't get me wrong. I'm no big fan of FPL, especially after the hurricanes where they wanted to raise everybody's rates because nobody had power. Like that was my fault. I mean, I'm pro-market. If I was pro-business, I would have to agree with everything the chamber does, which I don't. Chamber of Commerce is not what it used to be. I'm glad you came on, dude. This is going to be playing in other markets as well, so you can use it for campaign raising. How many miles does Jackie run?
Just a couple.
Yeah, I do. That's good.
She had planned out fasciitis. She was a star runner when she was a kid. I mean, she was one of the fastest milers in the country. And
I do about 10 miles on the bike. But just because my knees and
I did 5 miles walking.
Yeah, you look good. You dropped some weight, man.
A couple pounds.
I didn't think you needed to drop that much.
I need to drop some more.
I love the song.
No disco music.
That disco. Hey, that's Barry White. That's love, baby. You know, Barry White got. Do you know that Do you know that the several members of the black community were ticked off at Barry White years ago because he dropped an F word in one of the songs? They called him a sellout. So, I love Barry White. So, I like the Barry White of Talk Radio because I'm all about the love. All right, let's give some love here. This is the Ed Dean Radio Show. The email address, eddeanradio@gmail.com. Ed Dean Radio. You can email me at gmail.com. Want to watch us live on the air? Just go to eddeanradio.com, eddeanradio.com. Bob Solari, Indian River County Commissioner here. Okay, so let's get back to this all aboard Florida. Is there, and let me separate it, forget federal money. Is there local or state taxpayer money going to be, do you believe, I mean, okay, there's some that are, whether it's already there, or do you believe future tense, that there's going to be local or state taxpayers money to subsidize, pay for projects when it comes to all aboard Florida?
The short answer is yes. I believe there will be, but I can't prove anything.
No, forget the proof. Let's go circumstantial.
For example, you were at the meeting with Mr. Reininger at the Taxpayers Association.
Yes.
When he talked about the terminal up in Orlando, he said that terminal was being paid for by grants and by a loan, and he said that his rent would pay back the loan. Is that an accurate statement?
Okay.
Okay, but if this was a market-driven project, you'd have to pay back the loan and the grant and the profit that the private sector company would be making on that business. So basically, he's getting a subsidized rent, near as I can tell. But without getting the full financial disclosure, you really can't tell. But if you're saying that, the government...
Well, the county gave it to him for free. Do you have a problem with that?
If the county gave it to him for free,
yeah,
that's using taxpayer dollars to subsidize this project. That's a subsidy.
Well, it's a tax abatement, which I support, by the way.
It's a subsidy.
Okay.
One difference is that we're not picking winners and losers. We're saying everybody who comes, anybody who comes into the community, wants to set up jobs here, we're welcome to have you. And after you pay your money, the capital cost for the project, you get the tax abatement. So that's a level playing field.
There's no limit of people, whether it's 100 jobs or 10 jobs, they all get tax abatement, right?
The winners. I'm not picking
winners. If it's 10 jobs or 100 jobs, do they all get the same tax? Okay.
They get it. Same thing with jobs credits.
Okay, let's be a little more direct. Let's talk about East Central Florida over here. What about Indian River County? I understand about Orlando. Is there any money, do you believe, going to come from Indian River County citizens for Sunrail? I'm not sorry, excuse me, all aboard Florida.
Well, we know we're going to have to pay a lot more to maintain the tracks.
County going to pay for that?
Our county's going to pay for
Has all aboard Florida said that they'll pick up the tab?
No, not for the maintenance of the tracks.
Okay.
Actually, not. Roughly, annually, and it's a very lumpy figure. It's not the same year after year, but when you average it out, we pay about $250,000 for all the track costs. When they double track it, our county public works director estimates that we're going to have to pay an additional $280,000 a year on average.
Is there an argument? I haven't heard this. I'm just asking. Is there, for example, when oil companies come into like Alaska, they want a tax abatement, tax cuts. They sit back and say, hey, and by the way, we'll give a local community that we're drilling in some of the revenues. Hey, it sweetens the pot, people like that. Has there been any discussion if all aboard Florida says, hey, we're going to make a bunch of money, we will turn around and give the money back to the counties to help offset that cost? Does that discussion ever come up?
No, and it's not ever going to come up, Ed, because we know there's not going to be excess cash out of that project.
Okay.
We know that. I mean, you're going from the ridiculous to the sublime.
Well, stormwater management, waste management companies sit back and say, hey, you give our client, we'll give it to your charity whatsoever. I mean, I'm just saying sometimes companies will do that to sweeten the pot. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying, has that type of discussion been brought up?
No, there hasn't even been real discussion. They're still trying to say that the RIF loan is not a subsidy.
What? Loans, I mean, subsidy. Okay, all right, we can get to the ifs about that. So, all right, Governor Rick Scott has said there is and there will not be any state money for all aboard Florida.
Well, again, what state money? If the terminal is subsidized by the government and they're not paying a full market rent for it, that's a subsidy.
Well, so they can say, well, it's local money, not state money.
Well, okay.
Until
there's a real examination of each segment of this, and the information is just not readily available, we can't say how many subsidies are there and how much support they're getting from the government. But we know that, for instance, when the Miami port was deepened, that I believe it's Miami, the Dade County, and the state paid for a lot of that improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Who benefits? Fortress Investment Group, the parent company of all aboard Florida, benefits because their container ships come into it, they're offloaded onto Fortress properties, and they're going to make a profit. I'm not saying, to be clear, I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying that they're getting government support. And a lot of people benefit from that government support, so I'm not even saying it's inappropriate. I'm just saying let's have the discussion about it.
You know, they have said, the governor came out, and the governor, unlike Charlie Crist, but the governor's flip-flopped with a few issues, Medicaid provision, the in-state tax tuition. Some people said the governor's kind of, one week it's in favor of all of Work Florida, the next week it's not in favor of all of Work Florida. I don't know where he's on this issue. He has said that they have not done a better job at PRing what they want to do. Although Work Florida says, hey, we've had over 600 plus meetings. I will have to admit, there's something, if people are not resonating with or agreeing with it, either they are PRing it, people don't like it, or the governor sits back and says, you guys just haven't done a good job of PRing it. But my question is if it's not kosher with the voters, somebody's either PR'd it the right way or they just don't know how to PR it. Have they done enough meetings with the public, do you believe?
They've absolutely done enough meetings with the public. They've been extremely visible. I mean, you couldn't ask them to be more visible. They have people in church goes all the time. But I think the problem is they're just not telling the truth. They're telling a series of half-truths. And people understand that. They pick that up after a while. And they don't appreciate it. We saw that a half a dozen times at the Taxpayers Association meeting. They just don't tell both sides of the story. And I'm not saying that they're wrong in that what they're doing, but most projects.
Paul Harvey, they're not telling the rest of the story.
Yes, most projects have pluses and negatives. If you just explain the negatives when you explain the positives and tell us what you're going to do about it, then I think people would be, it'd take a lot of the air out of the balloon. But they don't. They just give 9 positives, deny any negatives, and people don't accept that.
Bob Solari, Indian River County Commissioner, here on the Ed Dean radio show. Have they, according to what you have discussed, have they told one group in one county one thing, told another group in another county a different thing? I've heard that they have. I mean, for example, hey, there'll be stops in Vero Beach down the road, and then they tell another group, it probably won't be any stops. I don't know. Has that happened?
I've heard it's happened. I've heard that, especially up in Brevard, that they've indicated strongly that there'd be stops, but I don't know for sure. But again, that's not material to me because I have 3 or 4 things which cause me to be against the project right now.
How about the business community? In some areas, I'm pro-market, but not always pro-business. Some areas, like for example, the Florida Chamber supported the high-speed rail, which was a complete joke. The money didn't add up. What about the business groups in Indian River County? Have they been soft in this? Are they coming out for or against it?
Well, basically, take our Chamber of Commerce. Initially, the All Aboard Florida people said that this would be great for tourism in Indian River County, that you're going to benefit from this. And our Chamber of Commerce executive director said, no, we're not. We're not going to get any benefit out of this. And she just said the other day that they finally dropped their talking point about this is going to increase business in Indian River County. I mean, imagine you're going 110 miles an hour through Indian River County. The areas of Indian River County you're seeing are not along the lagoon. They're basically along trailer parks and industrial parks. Your vision of Indian River County is not anywhere nearly as positive as it would be if you drove a car down Route 60 to the lagoon.
On this issue of jobs, how many jobs have they, I know in some counties it's different, how many jobs have they projected will take place in Indian River County and along the East Coast if the train and the tracks are built?
They said that this would inject $192 million of economic activity and 400 jobs during construction. And those
which could last for quite a while.
Oh, it could. They last for a year, and that's a plus. But when
I've never done a government project to be that quick. But go ahead.
Well, they're just laying a little trail in Indian River County, and they have those big trail layer machines down, so they're fairly efficient. But that's a short-term burst, and often those type of short-term bursts cause more dislocations and problems in the long term than they solve.
Well, to be fair, I've seen some companies underneath tax abatements only have a short-term burst.
Well, absolutely. There's
so,
a lot.
Yeah.
But again, tax abatements, we're not singling out a winner and a loser. We're saying this is open to everybody. And if you use our tax abatements, and we have a better record with job credits because we have more of them, our job credit program, which is open to most businesses and only gets paid after they've done what they said they're going to do, has been good for the community.
Whereas, it's funny because when you get, unfortunately, when you have to build something, it's not going to go through the variance, zoning, planning and zoning, board of adjustments. I mean, oh my goodness, one layer on top of another layer. These guys have literally, I understand how to go through hoops and tunnels. one group I'm more curious about, a government entity. I don't know maybe in West Florida, South Florida, West Palm. I'm more curious about in other areas. The Department of Environmental Protection. Have they come out and given a yay or nay on all the board of Florida?
I have not heard.
Okay, so I take it they haven't done it yet.
I have not heard that.
All right. Is it possible that going through wetlands or whatever, through the beach line, that the Florida DEP could come out and say, hey, this doesn't jive with us. We're not going to give our go-ahead on. What happens to the project then, do you think?
Well, I think that if it gets slowed down enough, it'll eventually die.
In other words, your best friends could be the environmentalists that some of us don't like. And I don't agree with. That's a weird way. Huh?
Absolutely. And
yeah,
those are tools that people use at different times to stop projects they believe are bad for a community.
Why? Again, this is based on selling land. I mean, you're a bit of business owner in the citrus industry. I would have sat back and said, again, I don't know, but why not build this west of the turn? Why not I-95 in the middle of nowhere? Do you think a lot of people could have gotten on board? Forget the subsidies, as you call them. I think a lot of people could have gotten on board with that.
Absolutely. I don't think there'd be any discussion at all. But, again, it'd be too expensive for all of West Florida to do it. Because right now, they've got one set of tracks, and they've got the easement. So their cost of doing it here as opposed to I-95 or using the Chessie tracks, it's got to be $2-3 billion less. And that's just a number out of the air, but it doubled the cost of the budget.
You could be different from other voters out there about this, but you represent other voters. They say that their one biggest complaint, again, with all the board of Florida, is safety, noise, taxes. I got one. I can only get which one is it you have to say. And what hits it in close second? I mean, people like numbers. Come on, Bob. Throw me some poll numbers.
The one general thing is that it's going to damage the community without providing any benefits to it. That sums up that.
Okay, what if it provided a benefit?
If it provided a benefit that was demonstrable, then there'd be a different discussion. For instance, it's not like there's one thing that 99% of the people are against. It's a continuum. Some people, you'd get 10% of the people in favor of the project if there were a stop in Indiana County.
But I list certain projects when I'm against certain things. So with you, is it the government loan, government subsidy, or is it safety, or what? Which takes the top tier?
For me, the top one is the government subsidy.
Okay.
When taxpayer dollars are on the line, I believe as an elected official that I have a fiduciary duty to the taxpayers. So the same thing I'm asking all of Board Florida was the same thing I asked when Amtrak was going to come through here. That was for an investment grade plan, business plan, so that I could see if the taxpayer had any chance of being paid back. That's my request.
I want to get to the loan thing here, because that I really, as a financial guy, I'm really fascinated by. Even though they say it's none of my business, that's fine. But I want to bring it up for discussion real quick. When I look at this, I don't know of a train that is in a surplus. Now, you can tell me certain parts of the operating whatever North Florida has a surplus, but South Florida with Amtrak, whatever, Sunrail, doesn't have a surplus. If there's not a surplus overall, to me, guess what? You're not making a profit.
That's the way I see it. And often, when they say that a segment's making a profit, they fail to disclose that. Well, yeah, but that's not really counting the capital costs which the federal government is picking up. So that's why you need to get these things in documents, in writing, the full business plan with the. But
you want to know something? I mean, if we're going to itch and complain about everything the federal government spends, I mean, I got 100 different areas that top all the board of Florida. Okay, so my point is, if it's going to be more direct money from the taxpayer, then I have a little bit of a concern.
Well, I mean, I don't complain about everything the federal government's doing. I don't have time, but I'm certainly going to complain about something
because it's your backyard.
It could destroy the fabric of this community. Yeah. So certainly it's an issue.
We all hate Congress. Just leave my congressman alone. All right. All right. Bob Solari here in the studios of the Ed Dean Radio Show. The email address, eddeanradio@gmail.com. eddeanradio@gmail.com. Watch us live on the air and go to eddeanradio.com. eddeanradio.com. When we come back from the break, I have a different take of the loan. I know it's none of my business because it's a loan, they say, with private sector money. I'm more curious about how the loan works out because it's an interesting topic. I'll break it down when we come back from the break right here on the Ed Dean Radio Show. Yeah, you'll like it. When I come back, you'll like how I'm going to break this down. Because the loan situation I find very fascinating. You're going to loan me, let's make it small. You loan me $1,000. I have to put up collateral for that $1,000. Okay, that's plan A. What they are telling me and other people is that, no. Our collateral is what we're going to buy with the money. Well, here's my point. You give me $1,000, but I go out and buy items that don't equal $500. Now I've lost 50% of my loan. See, I know they're going to tell me something of my bit. I'm just saying that's what I'm more curious about. How in the world do you, that's sad. Well, no, I don't put up anything for his loan, but I'm going to put up the collateral I plan to buy with it. And by the way, now I'm told that as they'll sit back and say, we're not getting a blank check. It's like a pay-as-you-go. Well, I'm just kind of curious, how much, because is it 80% you have to put? Is it 60%? Well, how do you only put up 60% of collateral for a loan of 100%? Those to me don't add up. And I'm always curious, what collateral are they putting up? I mean, I'm just saying, forget Fortress and their hedge fund. Is there enough land that they own worth, or is it a net worth of trains coming? I'm more curious about that. I know it's none of my business, but it's great for argument's sake.
Yes, I agree.
See, to me, that's what my big issue is. I told Matt, I said, that. I know, Matt, I said, listen, that's what PR you get for. I understand it. I'm not like that. But I'm like, my point is that I'd never, I mean, is it, thank you. It's just, I'm more curious about the loan. I'm just curious how it works.
But we don't know how it works because they won't tell us anything.
Well, they're saying they don't. Listen, if the local EDC gets 75% of government money and 25% of private money, and yet they don't tell us how they're bringing in jobs, I got news for you. Yeah, you do. All right, I'm sorry. It's just I'm an investor. I want to know. It's not I'm going to tell everybody what it is. I need to know.
Yeah, but you don't because the FRA knows.
Those guys are powerful.
Lots of guys are powerful.
The East Coast Railway is more powerful than the DOT in the state. That's scary. It's funny. They keep hiring these business people. They don't keep regurgitating these people. By the way, I tell you, there's going to be lawsuits left and right. I'm saying they're going to keep the law, obviously. There's going to be lawsuits against us. I'm saying they're going to happen because of lawsuits. Look at those. It'll take 10 years.
Well, you're telling me it's going to be another campaign issue for me?
Milk it, baby. All right. That is the Ed. Keep playing that, would you, for a second? All right. If you're not woken up, I can't do anything for you. It's the Ed Dean Radio Show. The email address, eddeanradio@gmail.com, eddeanradio@gmail.com. Bob Solari, Indian River County Commissioner here. I've been told that all aboard Florida says, okay, wait a second. Now, I understand this aspect, Bob, being a financial guy. A subsidy and a loan, okay. I mean, subsidy means I'm continuing to pay for it. A loan means I gave you direct money. You have to pay it back. It's a definition of is.
No. Let's just go to the dictionary for definition. And a subsidy is a pecuniary aid given by a government to a private company.
Right.
The pecuniary aid in this case is the discounted market rate for the loan. And you can quantify that. When you do the two amortization schedules, 5.75% for what the FRA is going to give the loan for, and 12%, which all aboard Florida recently went to the market and had to pay for a loan.
Right.
You do the math, and the subsidy over the 35-year term of the loan is $3.1 billion. There's no question about that. And if you look at other articles about subsidies all the time, you can see that people say that, the subsidy is the beneficial market rate. So that's the subsidy. If the federal government would have given me a loan for 5.75% when I bought my first house,
right,
when I paid 12% back in 1983, instead of a 1,700-foot townhouse, I could have bought a 3,000-foot single-family home. I would have liked to get that type of subsidy.
But in a legal language, I got a loan, a lump sum payment, that's done. I'm not being subsidized for the next 30 years. I'm paying back the loan over 30 years.
You are being subsidized for the next 30 years because because your annual payment with this subsidized loan is $88 million a year less than it would have been with the marketplace loan. So that's the subsidy.
Now you just added on to it, which essentially you said it's a subsidized loan. It's either a loan or a subsidy. Subsidized loan.
Subsidy is the discounted market rate. That's clear.
Right. If you say it's a subsidized loan, it's a one-time payment. Okay, that's fine. You just phrased it. But when I think of a subsidy, I keep thinking, man, the government's going to be paying for this for the next 35 years. What I'm saying is they already paid a loan like GM.
The government paid for it. Well, I'm not concerned so much about the government paying for it. I'm concerned about getting the taxpayer dollars back.
You know, if I was going to pay $4 billion, I think they were going to pay what, depending on the interest rate.
2.5.
They're going to pay back the loan. Why not try to get more private money? So you'd save yourselves $3 to $4 or $5 billion on interest.
You mean for equity?
Yeah.
Well, how many people are going to want to give their money for an equity project like private rail? These people with $1 billion and stuff to give for this type of project, they've got accountants and lawyers that tell them that passenger rail doesn't work. you're not going to get your money back. They understand this. It's somehow government agents in Washington that don't quite understand that they're not going to get
I am more curious about the loan aspect. For example, let me break this down. We talked about this during the break. You loan me $1,000. Let me keep it very small and condensed. You loan me $1,000. Option A is, hey, I have to put up collateral for that $1,000. You see it right there, go to the lawyers, it's fine and done with. What I'm being told, or what I've heard, is that no. I'm not giving up the collateral. I'm going to put up maybe 60% collateral, but the rest of it is what I plan to buy with the money you give me, Bob. Well, wait a second. Now you're really taking a risk because, wait, okay, so let's say you give me $1,000, but the items I buy are only worth $500. Now I just lost 50% of the payment if I have to foreclose on you guys. I'm losing money here. And I don't know, I mean, I've been told it's 80%, 60%. Usually if you had to put up so much and this was a real private market thing, and again, I'd ask these guys the same question. Are you only putting up 60% of 100% loan, 80%? I don't understand. Where's the collateral coming? Is it already not cash on hand, but obtaining what you have now, or is it what you plan to buy with the money down the road?
That's a question I'd certainly like the answer to, and Mr. Reininger at the Taxpayers Association meeting gave some answer, but I couldn't really follow it. And if I couldn't follow it, I might suspect that most of the audience couldn't follow it. I understand it's similar to you that part of the collateral, certainly not all of it, part of the collateral will be what they put into the system. For instance, my understanding is they're going to spend about $400 million on a new signaling system to upgrade it to the 21st century. Well, once you put that signaling system in place, it's not going to retain much value if you have to pull it out of place. And that's one of my concerns. If you use $400 million for that, if you use another $600 million for the new track, yes, you use the dollars to build the infrastructure. But that infrastructure is not owned by All Aboard Florida. That infrastructure is owned by FECI. So if All Aboard Florida goes broke, that infrastructure stays there. Okay. The federal government's not going to come back. What's going to happen if it does go broke is that the federal government's going to go, oh, we now have $1 billion in equity down there. We're going to send Amtrak down. So now,
or a new company may come in,
or whatever. But now, basically, the federal government's going to end up subsidizing another broken rail project.
I know sometimes in the political world we live on hypotheticals and what if. So let me do a what if. Okay, what if this was all no loan, 100% paid out for by the private sector, and yet there were still no stops in Vero Beach? They're still going to go 32 times a day, 110 miles an hour. Would you have a problem with that?
I would not have the problem I have today. I couldn't, because it would be very little of my business. I'd be left to making sure.
You still have voters' concerns about clients.
I would be left. That's what I'm saying. I would be left to basically making sure that the safety aspects of the rail project were addressed. And so my concerns would be much less. Again, I've got a history of this, Ed. My objection to Amtrak, and when it was Amtrak, I was almost alone against it, was that it didn't provide an investment-grade business plan, and that at the end of the day, the taxpayer was going to subsidize 90 cents of every dollar ticket price. So that's why I was against Amtrak. That's the driving force of why I'm against this project today.
Yeah, it's almost, in a weird way, it's guilt by association. There hasn't been one train that I've seen make a profit.
Well, and that sends off the bells and whistles.
Okay.
And if they could show with an investment-grade business plan that it has a chance of making it, I'd back off, basically. But they refuse to do that.
See, now, that is an honest answer, because when I talk to many of my side of the aisle, and by the way, this is not a political, I've known many Democrats that don't like All Aboard Florida.
Absolutely.
All right? So my question is because when you don't like, it's like I didn't like Bush, I didn't like Obama. They can't find one thing to agree with these. I run into that. I understand that. And that's why I ask for more specifics. Because if I say, well, what if it's private funded? Oh, well, then I don't like the 30. It's always a what if, I'm okay. So I find inconsistency even on my side. At least I got a consistent answer from you on that one. I'm just saying, if it was all private money, and let's say they made a stop in Vero, could you go along with that? Well, what about the 32? Okay, then I can't, you're never going to get 100% of everything.
I understand. And life's not like that. You're right, you don't.
Even though I want 100% of everything, but I learned how to negotiate. Hey, by the way, Bill Posey in the Indian River Press Journal, him and Patrick Murphy are asking about this $1.5 billion. Do you think, I'm not saying you speak for Posey or Patrick Murphy, but I know a lot of politicians that, oh man, we've done polls. By the way, a lot of people, this is a big concern in the Indian River County, Fort Pierce area. Oh man, it sounds great, but man, polls are just not for it. I've seen people switch their views just based on the polls.
The only poll that I heard of was one that Rusty Roberts told me when we first met on April 10th, and he said that 70% of the people in Indian River County were for all aboard Florida. And that was supposed to influence my decision.
See, I would like to see who did the poll, just to see what it was.
Well, yeah, I asked some questions about the polls, and no answers were forthcoming, so it's kind of weakened the viability. But that's not an issue. My job isn't dependent upon a poll this week or next week. My job is, what are my responsibilities to the citizens of Indian River County?
Listen, Bob Solari, I'm glad you came on. How was the bagel?
The bagel was excellent.
I take care of all my guests. I don't care what political side you're on. I take care of all my guests. That's my way of stimulus. That's my stimulus for you. Okay.
It was buttered properly.
It was right. Hey, listen, man. I don't mean to brag. I don't mean to boast. But I like hot butter on my breakfast toast. So there we go. All right. More of the. Let's get on. All right. Listen. I'm glad you came on today. This debate's not going anywhere. We're going to have more, and that's why I have to ask you some tough questions. You did a good job. I got to ask on both sides. More of the Ed Dean Radio Show. The email address is eddeanradio@gmail.com. eddeanradio@gmail.com. By the way, that's spelled M-A-I-L, not M-A-L-E. Gmail. You'd be surprised. Anyways, have a good weekend. We'll see you bright and early Monday morning at 6 a.m. Have a good weekend. Thanks again, Bob.
Thank you, Ed. Ed, thank you.